Today is a good day to finally have some change. Jake was a man who lived with his parents for a good number of years. Time and greed made homes more expensive to obtain, so with a more practical approach, Jake chose to get an apartment. The morning newspaper had been marked with red X's. Jake crossed out one pricey apartment ad after another. When all hope seemed lost, he finally spotted an ad with a great deal. However, the location was a bit sketchy. Jake nevertheless put on his suit and drove to the location to talk with the landlord. Upon arriving, he met with him, a short, stocky man with food stains on his shirt. The landlord looked at Jake with a devious grin. They walked up to an office filled with discarded food wrappers and used up tissue paper. Both sat down, signed some forms, and then proceeded into the room which would be Jake's new abode, Apartment 8. The inside of the apartment was a bit run down, something that you would obviously expect when living in a dirt cheap apartment. The landlord gave Jake a small tour of the kitchen, bathroom, and bedroom, all which needed some proper maintenance. Jake turned on the air conditioning unit, which had an awful noise coming from it. The landlord explained that the unit had been busted for a couple of months. The repairman rarely came by to fix anything due to the rough neighborhood. Jake did not care at the moment. He had a place of his own, and a place he could call his. The first week was spent painting and repairing the apartment. Jake put a lot of work and effort to make it the best apartment in the building. Most of the minor things were fixed, like the sink and the shower knobs, but he couldn't fix the air conditioning unit. The vent which leads to the interior part of the unit was welded shut. Unusual, since typical vents were screwed in with bolts. This one needed to be pried open with a crowbar, yet Jake didn't have one around, so he ignored the problem. The second week seemed a bit strange. Outside the apartment was a laundry room. Jake would go into it at night to clean his clothes. However, every night he stepped out of his apartment, the night would be very still. No wind blowing, no crickets chirping, not one person left in their apartment room at the late times. Jake would place his clothes in the washer as quick as possible, fast enough to run back to his apartment, as he felt like he was being watched. The third week seemed to become drearier for Jake. The daylight heat began to take its toll on him. Beads of sweat running down his face increased its numbers enough to make him get up to buy a crowbar. The day of shopping quickly went dark, as the moon came out, shining its dim light on the road. Jake made it home and placed the newly bought crowbar aside to grab some dirty shirts to take to the laundry room. Once again, the environment was the same, silent, strange, and ominous. Jake headed to the dark laundry room, clicked on the light, and placed his clothes on the table. It was at this very moment he heard something behind him, and someone was sitting on a chair in the corner of the room. The person was hard to see, even in a brightly lit room. The stranger had been covered in a shadow, as he was balled up on a chair, shivering intensely. Jake stared at the person, trying to recognize him, thinking it might be a neighbor, so he asked the stranger if he was okay. The man told him he wasn't. Jake asked another question as to why the stranger was out there shivering in the dark. The man said because someone was living in his apartment. When Jake nervously asked who, the man stopped shivering. Looking up at Jake, the man revealed his decaying, contorted face, pointed his bony finger at him, and said, "You." A scream was loudly heard coming from the laundry room. Numerous eyes from different apartment rooms looked through their windows to see blood splashing on the laundry room walls, where Jake would last be seen alive. The screaming stopped. The light turned off. The staring eyes faded back into their apartment rooms. In a bad neighborhood, no one tries to be a hero. The police went to investigate Jake's murder. Upon searching his room, they noticed the welded vent and the crowbar Jake recently purchased. An officer got the crowbar and used it to pry open the vent. Nothing seemed odd at first, until the officer looked into the air conditioning unit interior. A decaying body was lodged inside. A dead body which strongly resembled the stranger who had killed Jake.